Years since the disappearance of Dulce Maria Alves, investigators in South Jersey say they're using the latest technology in an ongoing effort to try to solve the case. Dulce was 5 years old when she was last seen playing with her younger brother at Bridgeton City Park. Her mother stayed in her car nearby with her younger sister. Moments later, Dulce was gone. Police released a sketch of a man who remains a person of interest. Cumberland County Prosecutor Jennifer Webb McRae said yesterday that New Jersey State Police have begun using artificial intelligence in hopes of developing new leads.
She was wearing white pants with butterflies on them, a yellow t-shirt with a koala, little white sandals, and she was eating coconut ice cream out of a cup. That's the last confirmed image anyone has of Dulce Maria Alves, 5 years old, 30 yards from her mother, in a public park on a Monday afternoon. 20 minutes. That's all it took. In 20 minutes, in broad daylight, surrounded by 400 vehicles, with a playground full of people nearby, a little girl in a yellow shirt simply ceased to exist. No scream anyone heard. No confirmed struggle. No clear suspect. Just gone. 911. Where's your emergency? I can't find my daughter. That call came 45 minutes after Dulce was last seen. Not 5 minutes. Not 10. 45.
Law enforcement and a reward for information leading to Dulce's return has grown to $35,000.
And in those 45 minutes, before a single officer was dispatched, before a single radio call went out, whatever trail existed in that park was already disappearing beneath the footsteps of hundreds of people who had no idea they were walking through a crime scene. The park covers 1,000 acres. 1,000. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the size of 1,800 football fields. Woods, water, buildings, blind spots. A place where someone who knew exactly what they were doing could move fast, move quiet, and move gone. The K-9 units picked up a scent. They followed it for nearly an hour through that park, nose to the ground, pulling hard, certain, and then it stopped. Just stopped, like she was lifted off the earth. The FBI would later say something that has never left this case. They said they believed witnesses were at that park who saw exactly what happened and never came forward. Think about that. Someone out there may have watched a child get taken and said nothing. It has been years since that Monday afternoon in Bridgeton, New Jersey. There has been no confirmed suspect, no arrest, no answer. Just a backpack, still packed, sitting exactly where she left it. And a family that has never moved a single one of her dresses from the closet. Never given away a toy. Never stopped waiting. Because here's what nobody could figure out. Not the 300 officers. Not the FBI's child abduction unit. Not the dozens of agencies that have worked this case across multiple states and countries. What happened to Dulce Maria Alves in those 20 minutes? And why does it feel like someone somewhere already knows the answer? Stay with me. Because to really understand what might have happened, we need to go back to the beginning. Dulce Maria Alves was born in April 2014 in Bridgeton, New Jersey, a small city in Cumberland County, in the southern part of the state. Bridgeton isn't a place most people outside of New Jersey have heard of. It's a tight-knit community, the kind of place where everyone knows their neighbors, where families have roots that run deep, and where news, good or bad, travels fast. And on the day Dulce was born, she came into a family that loved her fiercely, even if life around them was complicated. Her mother, Noma, was just 14 years old when Dulce was born. 14. Still a child herself, really. Because of that, the responsibility of raising Dulce fell largely to Noma's mother, Norma, who eventually became Dulce's legal guardian. So from her very first years, Dulce grew up in a household shaped by her grandmother's hands. And by all accounts, those were loving hands. Norma was devoted to that little girl in a way that only grandmothers who step up and become everything can be. Dulce's father, Edgar Perez, was part of her life in her early years. He took care of her, by his own account, from when she was a baby. But in 2018, about a year before Dulce disappeared, Edgar was deported to Mexico. And just like that, the ocean separated a father from his daughter. He couldn't call her whenever he wanted. He couldn't show up for her. He was just gone. Another absence in a life that was already learning to navigate around them. But here's what you need to understand about Dulce herself, separate from all the circumstances around her. She was not a sad child. She was not a quiet, withdrawn little girl shaped by the hard edges of her family story. She was the opposite. Everyone who knew her says the same thing. She was lively, loud in the best way, the kind of kid who lit up whatever room she walked into. She loved to hug. She loved to kiss. She would throw her arms around the people she loved without any warning, like affection was something she just couldn't keep inside.
I saw it was some of you sent me information, and it was discovered that it had been reported that there was an arrest made, that the victim's mother was arrested. That's totally erroneous. In fact, that in and of itself is being investigated as well. I'd like to caution you on jumping to conclusions or publishing anything. I think myself and the prosecutor have been pretty open, even when you text, about providing as much information as we can. We do not have any strong suspects at this time, and we're doing a lot of interviews. I'd say, Rufford, as of this morning, probably 70, 75 minutes.
She was obsessed with Frozen, the Disney movie. She could watch it on a loop over and over and never get tired of it. She adored pretending she was a princess, not just playing at it, but fully committing to it the way only 5-year-olds can, with total belief and zero self-consciousness. She was joyful. She was whole. She was 5 years old and brand new to the world, and had absolutely no idea how dangerous it could be. By 2019, Noma had a 3-year-old son named Manny and was 5 months pregnant with her third child. She and the kids were living in Bridgeton, still connected to Norma, still a family unit held together by love and proximity. And on the afternoon of September 16th, 2019, Noma was waiting outside her mother's house for Dulce and Manny to get off the school bus. Dulce had just started kindergarten. She was still getting used to the routine, the backpack, the bus, the new classroom, the new everything that comes with being 5, and suddenly existing in a bigger world. When the kids got home that afternoon, the plan was simple. Noma, Dulce, Manny, and Noma's younger sister decided to head to Bridgeton City Park. Nothing special. Just an afternoon out, the kind of ordinary Monday that families have thousands of times without thinking twice. They stopped at a gas station on the way. The kids got ice cream. Surveillance cameras inside the store captured the family. Dulce in her white butterfly pants, her yellow koala shirt, her little white sandals, holding her cup of coconut ice cream like it was the best thing in the world. Which, to a 5-year-old on a Monday afternoon, it probably was. They drove about 5 minutes to the park and pulled up near the basketball courts. Dulce and Manny jumped out of the car and ran toward the playground swings, 30 yards away, close enough to see, or so it seemed. Noma stayed in the vehicle. She was 5 months pregnant, tired, and her younger sister was sitting next to her working on homework. So Noma stayed put, scratching off a lottery ticket, watching through the windshield while her kids played. Ordinary. Unremarkable. The kind of moment that only becomes significant in hindsight. But here's the thing about that playground. The swings were partially blocked from view by a hill. You could see the park from where the car was parked, but not all of it. Not the swings directly. That hill, that small, unremarkable geographic detail, would become one of the most important facts in this entire case. Because it meant that for at least part of those 20 minutes, nobody with a clear line of sight was watching Dulce. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me what city you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I genuinely want to see how far this story is reaching. It'll only take 2 seconds, and it means a lot to this channel. Now, let's keep going. At some point around 4:20 p.m., 20 minutes after they arrived, something went wrong. Exactly what happened next depends on which version of events you're looking at, because the accounts shifted in ways that investigators would spend years trying to reconcile. In the earliest version of events, it was reported that Manny ran back to the car by himself. He came back alone. No Dulce. In a later version, Noma said that's not what happened at all, that Manny never came back to the car. She said that she and her sister got out because they could no longer see either child from where they were sitting, and that's when they went looking. According to this version, they found Manny standing near the playground, crying, his ice cream on the ground at his feet. Noma asked him where his sister was. He pointed toward some buildings at the edge of the park. Dulce wasn't there. Noma searched. She asked kids at the basketball courts if they had seen her daughter. One boy said he saw Dulce running toward the buildings and mentioned there was a black man nearby. But then another witness gave a completely different account. A girl said she saw what looked like a red van and a Hispanic man near that same area. Two witnesses. Two different descriptions. Both from children. And the details would continue to shift in the hours and days ahead. Noma also recalled seeing two children around the same ages as Dulce and Manny walking out of the park together, holding hands, with no adult visible nearby. She watched them for a moment, didn't think much of it, kept searching. Before calling 911, Noma called her brother. He lived nearby and came with his dog to help look. They searched together. Still nothing. Only after all of that, after the brother arrived, after they combed the area themselves, after precious minutes continued to tick away, did Noma pick up the phone and dial 911. 45 minutes after Dulce was last seen. And during that 911 call, even the details that seemed firm started unraveling. The description of what Dulce was wearing, Noma said she remembered the pants, but couldn't recall the shirt. The account of what the boy at the basketball court said kept shifting as the dispatcher tried to piece it together. At one point it sounded like two black males took the ice cream and left with the girl. Then it was clarified. Then it shifted again. Confused. Chaotic. The kind of communication that happens when a mother's brain is running on pure panic and a dispatcher is trying to build a coherent picture out of fragments. Within minutes, police arrived at Bridgeton City Park. And what they found was the beginning of an investigative nightmare. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you already know that the first hours of a missing child case are everything. The trail is warmest right then. Evidence is freshest. Witnesses still have the details locked in their heads. Every minute that passes is a minute the perpetrator uses to get further away, to clean up, to disappear. And by the time police got that call, 45 minutes had already been spent. The clock was already running behind. K-9 units moved through the park with search dogs, following their noses through the grass and the trees and the spaces behind those buildings Manny had pointed toward. The dogs picked up a scent. They followed it. For nearly an hour, they tracked it through 1,000 acres of park. And then it just stopped. Cold. No gradual fade. No branching trail. Just a hard stop, like whoever they were following had stepped into a vehicle. Like the trail walked straight up to a door that wasn't there anymore. Bridgeton City Park covers 1,000 acres in Cumberland County, right behind Bridgeton High School. During the 20-minute window when Dulce disappeared, the police chief confirmed there were roughly 400 vehicles in or around that park. People jogging. People working out. People hanging around the basketball courts. A busy Monday afternoon in a well-used public space. And yet, no cameras directly on the playground. None where it mattered most. Now, here's something that has sat uneasily with investigators from the very beginning. When a crowd shows up to help search, and in this case, the community responded fast and in huge numbers, well-meaning people flood the area. They walk the same ground that a suspect may have walked. They disturb grass, brush against fences, step over tire marks, trample whatever physical evidence might have been sitting right there on the surface waiting to be found. It's not anyone's fault. People want to help. But the unintended consequence is that potential evidence, shoe prints, tire tracks, anything the perpetrator may have left behind, gets compromised before investigators can properly collect it. The park wasn't locked down immediately. People poured in. And whatever physical record existed of what happened that afternoon became harder to read with every passing hour. The FBI's Child Abduction Unit stepped in to assist local law enforcement. Resources came from every direction. The scale of the response was significant, but it was also chasing a trail that was already going cold. And now I want to ask you something. If you're finding this case as haunting as I do, and I think you are because you're still here, please take 1 second and hit that subscribe button. We cover cases like this one every week. Cases that matter. Cases that deserve to stay in the public conversation. It costs you nothing, and it genuinely helps keep this channel alive. Okay, back to Bridgeton. The following day, September 17th, police released a description of a vehicle they were looking for. A red van. Sliding doors. Tinted windows. That description came from a child witness, and investigators were careful to note it might not be perfectly accurate. Children process and recall visual details differently than adults, especially under stress. But it was what they had, so it went out. 28 hours after Dulce was last seen, at 10 o'clock that night, an Amber Alert was officially issued. For those unfamiliar, an Amber Alert is an emergency broadcast system that pushes out to phones, highway signs, and media outlets when a child is believed to have been abducted. It's designed to get information in front of as many eyes as possible, as fast as possible. Former FBI Special Agent J.J. Claver would later say publicly that the alert should have gone out within hours of the disappearance, not the following day. 28 hours is a long time when a child is missing. A very long time. But once it went out, the response was massive. More than 300 officers got involved in the search. Over 200 locations were searched. More than 500 vehicles were checked. Registered sex offenders in the area were contacted and questioned about their whereabouts. Helicopters swept the area from above. Dive teams checked the bodies of water in the park. Ground crews and volunteers moved through the woods and the fields. About 70 to 75 people were interviewed in the first stretch of the investigation. The effort was enormous. And it turned up nothing. No confirmed suspect. No physical evidence directly linking anyone to the abduction. No clear answer about what had happened in those 20 minutes between 4 o'clock and 4:20 p.m. on September 16th. A composite sketch was released. A thin man, possibly Hispanic, around 30 to 35 years old, approximately 5 feet 6 inches tall. He was described as having acne on his face and was reportedly wearing a black t-shirt, red pants, orange sneakers, and a baseball cap. Several men who resembled the sketch were brought in for questioning. Each one was released. Meanwhile, something else was happening, something that would complicate the investigation in ways that are difficult to fully untangle. Rumors were spreading across social media at a speed that no press conference could match. People were speculating, pointing fingers, making accusations without evidence. And the target of much of that speculation was Noma, Dulce's own mother. Online communities began to question her. They scrutinized her demeanor. They picked apart her public statements. They raised her past. They circulated false reports, including one that spread widely claiming she had been arrested. The Bridgeton police chief had to address it directly at a press conference, calling the arrest report completely false and saying it was being investigated as misinformation. And here is where this case becomes genuinely complicated. Because some of the questions people were asking were not entirely unreasonable, even if the way those questions spread online was ugly and unfair to a grieving mother. There were inconsistencies. There were details that didn't quite line up. The changing account of what Manny did when Dulce disappeared. The 45-minute delay before calling 911. The fact that her phone was taken by law enforcement several times for examination. The polygraph she took, whose results were never made public. Dulce's aunt stepped forward to defend her sister publicly. "They can't judge other people," she said. "They're not cops." And the police were equally direct. They stated repeatedly that the family was cooperating fully with the investigation. They were not calling Noma a suspect. They were not pointing fingers. They were doing their jobs, which meant looking at everyone and ruling no one out. The community's reaction went beyond social media. People were genuinely scared. One Bridgeton resident said that nothing felt the same anymore, that even standing right next to their kids at the park, they were constantly looking over their shoulders. Fear had moved into the neighborhood, and it wasn't leaving. On September 18th, just 2 days after Dulce disappeared, the community held a candlelight vigil at the park. Hundreds of people came, strangers, neighbors, people who had never met the Alves family, but felt the weight of what had happened. Many of them wore yellow, the color of the shirt Dulce was last seen in. Dulce's grandmother stood before the crowd, tears running down her face, and she said something that went straight through everyone who heard it. She said, "I beg you, if you know something, please call police. Because the truth is, the people that have the little girl don't know what you're causing us." Noma did not speak at the vigil. She was escorted by law enforcement and stood quietly, visibly overwhelmed. She would speak publicly for the first time 2 weeks later at a press conference that became one of the most closely watched moments of the entire investigation. She walked up to that podium and she said, "Today marks 2 weeks since the monster that took my daughter. On that day, my life changed for the worst. I have not been the same since." She addressed the rumors directly. She asked people to stop pointing fingers. She thanked law enforcement, the media, and every volunteer who had given their time. And then she made a plea. "Don't give up on my Dulce. Keep sharing her pictures. Keep passing out flyers. Check your phones for any photos or videos from that day at the park. Any little bit may help." Reporters asked her questions after. They asked if she reflected on what she might have done differently that afternoon. She said she would just not go out that much anymore. She said she was scared now, scared of going out, scared of the rumors, scared of what people were saying about her. Someone asked what she thought had happened to her daughter. She said quietly, "I'm not sure." She was also asked about Manny, what he had said to her when she found him standing there, crying at the park. And her answer was one of the most heartbreaking details in this entire case. She said, "He doesn't talk. He was 3 years old and not yet speaking. He had no words for what he had seen. He could only cry and point toward the buildings. And then he went silent." The one person who was standing right there when Dulce disappeared, the one person who may have seen exactly what happened, could not tell anyone what he saw. Here's where something important needs to be said, and I want you to really sit with this, because it says something about the layers underneath this case. Bridgeton has a sizable population of undocumented immigrants, people who were at that park that afternoon, people who may have seen something. And many of those people were afraid to come forward, not because they didn't want to help, but because they were terrified of what coming forward might mean for them. Would they be reported to immigration authorities? Would talking to the FBI lead to deportation? The police chief made public assurances. No one coming forward with information would be asked about their immigration status, and local police were not working in coordination with ICE. But trust is not built with a press conference. Trust takes years. And that fear, that very understandable, very human fear, may have created a wall between investigators and the people who had exactly the information they needed. A community advocate who worked with migrants explained it clearly. She said they were afraid it was a trap. That even when the police chief said the right things publicly, getting that message to actually land, to actually be believed, was a different challenge entirely. And it's impossible to know how many tips never came in because of it. How many witnesses stayed quiet. How many pieces of the puzzle are still sitting in someone's memory, unsaid. I need you to stay with me right here, because what comes next in this investigation takes a turn nobody was expecting. And if you haven't already, share this video with someone who follows true crime, because this case deserves more eyes on it. More people who might know something. More people asking questions. Let's keep going. On September 24th, investigators made phone contact with Dulce's father, Edgar Perez, in Mexico. They wanted to know if he had any information that might explain why someone would target his daughter, if there was any connection, any history, any reason that could help point investigators in a direction.
It was a necessary step.
Edgar would later post a video on YouTube on Dulce's 7th birthday, speaking directly to the camera, clearly emotional, denying any involvement. He said, "For those that think that I took my baby girl, I got nothing to do with it. Just like everyone, I want to know where she is." In November of 2019, investigators appeared to rule Edgar out as a suspect. The focus remained on whoever had been at that park, whoever had used those 20 minutes and that blind hill and that absence of cameras to take a 5-year-old girl in front of hundreds of people without anyone stopping them. In December 2019, the case reached a national audience when Noma appeared on the television show Dr. Phil. It was the first time many people across the country were hearing the details of what had happened in Bridgeton. Dr. Phil pressed Noma on the questions everyone had been asking. Did she have any idea who could have done this? Was there anyone in her life who concerned her? And she mentioned someone.
A man.
A former acquaintance who had approached her a few times before the disappearance. A man who had asked her out, which she had declined. A man she said was one of the last people to see her daughter, who had seen them together at some point before that September afternoon and asked if Dulce was her daughter. She was careful to say she was not accusing him. She only mentioned him because she was answering the question directly. But the detail was out there now, hanging in the air, the way details like that do. Dr. Phil announced during the episode that he would personally contribute to the reward fund. The total reward climbed to $75,000. Petitions for surveillance cameras to be installed at Bridgeton City Park gathered nearly 2,000 signatures. And then March 2020 arrived. And with it, the pandemic. The COVID-19 lockdowns brought investigative work to a near standstill. In-person briefings stopped.
Courts closed.
Interstate travel became difficult. The rhythms of a major investigation, the interviews, the follow-ups, the in-person coordination between agencies, all of it slowed dramatically. For a case that was already up against the wall in terms of leads, it was another blow. Another delay. More time for distance to grow between the moment Dulce disappeared and any chance of answers. Around that same period, psychics started coming forward. One claimed to have connected with Dulce and said she was buried in a shallow grave near school. Former FBI Special Agent Claver was direct about how the Bureau handled that kind of information. The FBI, he said, does not give credibility to information provided by psychics. It was noted. It was set aside. But then something happened that was harder to dismiss and harder to explain. 3 mysterious letters surfaced. Not in New Jersey. In Ohio. One was found at a library. One turned up at an ice cream shop. A third arrived at a racetrack with a casino. The library received a letter, 2 pages long. The ice cream shop and the racetrack each received a postcard. All 3 appeared to have been written by the same hand. Investigators said the handwriting across the messages matched. The content of the letters referenced Dulce by name. They referenced her mother's appearance on Dr. Phil. They mentioned a 76 truck stop, a dead-end street, woods. The return address on one envelope pointed to a zip code in Mexico, though authorities couldn't confirm whether it had actually been mailed from there. One of the postcards had a Cleveland postmark. Another had no postmark at all but contained details specific to a small Ohio town near the Pennsylvania border. Police in that area conducted searches. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Infrared technology was used to scan the terrain. Investigators combed through approximately 40 acres of land near the racetrack. They found nothing connected to Dulce. Nothing at all. Around the same time, Jackie Rodriguez, who had previously served as a spokesperson for the Alves family, received her own letter. A chaotic collection of notes on scraps of paper, crammed into an envelope with no complete return address. Among the words scattered through the letter, 1776.
Campground.
Mexico. Police Chief Gamari was clear about his position. Whether the letters were connected to Dulce's disappearance or were an elaborate hoax, he wanted answers either way. If someone was out there playing games with a missing child's case, wasting investigative resources, generating false hope for a family already in agony, he wanted that person held accountable. The letters were turned over to New Jersey authorities. The investigation continued. And the questions only multiplied. 1 year passed. Then 2. The community held silent marches on the anniversary of her disappearance. The reward stayed at $75,000. Age progression images were released, first showing what Dulce might look like at 7, then at 8, because birthdays kept coming even though she wasn't there to have them. Her father's birthday video on YouTube was quiet and raw. He sat in front of a camera in Mexico and said he missed her. Said he didn't know if she was okay. Said he changed her diapers and did everything for her and wanted people to know she was his. There was nothing performed about it. Just a man in another country, separated from his daughter by deportation and then by something far worse, talking to a camera because there was nothing else he could do. 3 years after Dulce disappeared, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released a new age progression image. New leads were still coming in, including an anonymous tip in the days just before the 3rd anniversary. A dozen agencies were actively working the case. Tips had come in from every single state in the country. Leads had been followed up in the United States and in Mexico. No door had been closed. And through all of it, Through the years and the marches and the vigils and the television appearances and the letters from Ohio and the cadaver dogs and the federal task forces, the Alves family went home every night to the same house, to the same rooms, to Dulce's backpack, still packed, sitting exactly where she left it after her last day of kindergarten. Her school folders inside. Her papers. The small, ordinary evidence of a 5-year-old's first steps into the world. Her mother said they haven't gotten rid of a single dress. Not one shoe. Not one toy. Everything is exactly where Dulce left it. Everything is waiting. Because that's what you do when you don't have an answer. You keep the space ready. You don't close the door. You keep the dresses hanging in the closet and the backpack on the floor, and you just wait. Somewhere between 4 p.m. and 4:20 p.m. on September 16, 2019, in Bridgeton City Park in Cumberland County, New Jersey, a 5-year-old girl in a yellow shirt with a koala on it stopped being visible to the world. And no one with any authority to answer the question has been able to say what happened to her. The FBI believes someone saw it happen. The police believe someone in that community is still holding information they haven't shared. And the family has to believe that she is still out there somewhere. If you have any information about the disappearance of Dulce Maria Alves, you can contact the Bridgeton Police Department, the FBI, or the Missing Persons Unit of the New Jersey State Police. There is a dedicated tip line available for Spanish-speaking individuals as well. The reward for information leading to Dulce is $75,000. The case is active. Investigators are still working it. And no tip is too small. The detail that feels insignificant to you might be the exact piece that changes everything. Were you in Bridgeton that day? Have you ever seen anything that didn't add up? Do you know something you've never said out loud?
Please, say it now.
And before you go, I want to ask you something. After everything you just heard, everything you now know about that afternoon, about that park, about that little girl, and the 20 minutes that changed everything, what do you think happened? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story moved you the way it moved me, share it. Put it on your page.
Send it to someone.
Because the more people who know Dulce's name, the better the chances that the right person hears it and finally decides to speak. If you're new here, subscribe. We do this every week. Real cases, real stakes, real stories that deserve to be told. And if you've been here for a while, thank you. Genuinely. You're the reason this channel exists. And you're the reason cases like Dulce's stay alive in the public conversation long after the news cameras move on. We'll see you in the next one.